guys, welcome to another episode of Fish from the West. I'm your host John B, and today I'm going to be counting down to my top 5 favorite lures. If someone were to walk up to me right now and said you can only choose 5 lures to fish the rest of your life, these are the ones that I would choose. I get asked a lot what my favorite lure is or what my favorite bait is to use, and the thing is I can't choose one. So instead of making a video on my one favorite lure, which I don't have, I'm going to do my top 5 favorite lures. Now, you know, these aren't the most effective lures in bass fishing, but they're my favorite to fish, only because I enjoy using them, and I also enjoy catching fish on them too, and to me they're very effective as well. So the lures I'm going to be showing you today are some that are my personal favorite and that you'll always find in my tackle box tackle bag. So thanks for watching and stay tuned. So number 5 right off of my list is probably a square bill crankbait. You know, I like fishing crankbaits in general, deep dive, and I like fishing hard baits such as jerk baits, topwater poppers, and stuff like that. But out of all the hard baits I could choose, I'd probably pick a square bill crank. This one right here is a KVD 1.5, and the reason why I choose this, the reason why it's one of my favorites, is it's just such a versatile crankbait. These things are just made to be beaten up against rocks, you know, logs and things like that, and they cause reaction strikes. Most people don't believe in reaction strikes. I do, because I've just seen it and I've witnessed it firsthand. You know, a bait hits off a rock or a bait hits off a piece of structure and the fish just keys in on it like that. But this is just a perfect bait to use, and it can be fished in a wide variety of areas, whether you're fishing riprap, you're fishing a flat, like a 5 to 6, 7 foot flat, or even a little bit deeper. These baits are usually meant to go about 5 to 6 feet at most, depending on what line diameter you're using. But I just love these baits because I enjoy, you know, using them, and these things flat out just nail big fish too. Now, number 4 on my list has got to be the spinnerbait. Spinnerbait, like a crankbait, is a reaction style bait. It's something you can work really fast, work really slow, but it's always constantly moving most of the time. And I've just caught a lot of really nice fish on spinnerbaits, like the square bill. You know, you can fish it in brush, you can fish it in grass, you can rip it through, all sorts of stuff. And fish just straight up love spinnerbaits. It's been in the game for, you know, it's been one of the most original lures out there for a long time. You know, you got the blade, the skirt, and you know, you can choose to put a little trailer on the back too. But it's just an awesome lure to throw. Like the square bill, it's very versatile. You can use it in many different situations. I prefer to use it in brush, shallow brush areas. I love burning them sometimes, working it real tight up against cover. And during the springtime, this is probably one of the most effective lures to use here in the Midwest. A lot of times people chuck it out there, chuck and wind, and they'll just real slowly creep it off the bottom, and it gets some of those bigger 6 to 5 pound lethargic largemouth to come up and just nail it. I think it's safe to say that everyone likes seeing a bass blow up on a frog. You know, there's nothing more exciting than seeing just a 4 or 5 pounder come dolphin over some pads or some scum or something like that to nail one of your frogs. It's just the coolest thing ever, and it gets your heart racing. And to me, it's one of the most exciting ways to fish, and that's why I chose frogs as my number 3, because it's just the coolest lure to fish. It's just flat out, you know, the excitement, the heart pounding explosion on your frog, whether or not you're gonna hook it or miss it, or if the fish took it or not. It's just crazy. It's like the most intensifying ways to fish when you're out in the water. And if I could, I'd throw a frog all year long, but usually in summertime is when the frog mostly excels. But I love fishing a wide variety of frogs between, you know, different brands, coppers, Sam Kennedy flipping the bird. You know, you've got a bunch of varieties you can choose. I also like throwing, I used to throw the bronze-eye all the time, the Spro bronze-eye, the Slither K. You know, I love frogs. I used to have, not anymore because I don't fish it as much, but I used to have just a box just full of frogs, and I'd have more frogs than I would jigs or anything else. I loved fishing frogs, and to me, it's actually a very effective tool. A lot of people think, you know, oh, you can only throw it in slop or pads, but I'm kind of like Demon Rojas. I like to throw this thing in open water under docks, up against a riprap shoreline. As long as the wind's not too bad and the fish can key in on it, why not throw it? Because, you know, there's nothing more fun than this. The frogs are completely weedless. You can chuck it in a tree, you can grip it right out. It's an awesome lure, and you can't doubt that you know, your heart's not beating 100 miles per hour once you see a fish V-line right in that frog or spread the pads apart just so they can suck it under. It's the coolest bait out there. It really is. And if you haven't fished frogs yet, you aren't bass fishing. You know, you got to get out there and chuck a frog. But definitely makes my number 3 on my top 5 list by far. I can guarantee if you're a bass fisherman, you've been fishing for at least over a year, you've got one of these little guys in your box. And that's why the jig has made it on my number 2. I've been fishing jigs since I started bass fishing when I was about, I think, 12 or 13. I've had these guys in my box for basically forever, and they're one of the most effective tools in bass fishing. You know, everyone's got a jig in their box. Everyone's throwing a jig. Everyone's got a jig rod tied up. You know, even if the bite's jerkbait or reaction, you know, if they're hitting on top water, you know someone's got a jig rod tied up on their boat. You know, because it's just such an effective tool. And bass just flat out just love jigs. They love the craw representation, and this is again a lure you can use all year long. You know, where when the fish are lethargic, they're up on ledges and things like that, you throw a football head jig. You know, if you're fishing the spawn, you know, you're trying to get those pre-spawn fish, you throw something like a casting jig, or like this little guy right here with a pointed nose. It kind of looks like a swim jig, but it's a skipping jig, and you can use this in just about any different types of situations. You know, you can fish jigs under docks. These things can get where most lures can't. And with it having a weed guard, you can fish it in grassy areas, brushy areas, places where there's laydowns, and you can get this little guy in some nasty spots where the bass like to be. You know, it's not like a shaky head, it's not like a crankbait. You can't throw a crankbait right up against a bank in between two logs and expect to get it out. But the jig is probably one of the most effective tools, I think, in anyone's tackle box, including mine. It catches big fish, it can get you limit fast, and most of the time I'm fishing a jig in a tournament. You know, I've always got one tied up. But I absolutely love the jig. It's got me some of my biggest fish ever, and if you haven't fished them, you definitely should start fishing them. Number one on my top 5 list isn't necessarily a lure, as it is more of a rig, but I've got some lures here, and you may know it already. I have a lot of videos about it, and like Aaron Martin's, yes, I absolutely love the drop shot rig. It is my number one favorite lure / rig to use in any situation, partially because I've caught some of my biggest fish on them. It never lets me down. You know, it's one of those lures, I call it basically the fish finder on the end of your line. You know, drop shot finds the fish, tells you where they're at. In my opinion, at least, I think it's one of the most effective lures out there. And while most of you guys highly disagree, and some of you guys may think it's kind of a weak way of fishing. You know, a lot of guys will throw swim baits, a lot of guys will power fish. You got me over here finesse fishing with a little 2-inch, 3-inch worm or whatever, going for whatever bites it. I really have so much, confidence in the drop shot. Everywhere I go, if I'm not confident, like if I know absolutely nothing about it as far as the bite, the ground cover, the structure, nothing, I'll throw a drop shot because I know and I have so much confidence in the bait that I'm going to catch fish. And it's another one of those lures like the jig that you can throw pretty much all year round and still catch them. Wintertime, fall, summer, when it's hot, you can fish deep flats and things like that. And right now they're working too. I mean, you just saw the video. We caught all of our smallmouth on drop shots. There wasn't a single lure that they hit otherwise. I mean, we had one on the jerkbait, but besides that, we didn't get any on jigs. We threw them too. We threw the jig just as much as we threw the drop shots at some points in time where we'd concentrate on a spot and I just throw a jig and guys in the front of the boat were catching them on drop shot. It's one of those lures that if you're not confident, throw a drop shot because you're going to catch fish. You may not catch the biggest fish in the lake, but you'll still catch them. And it's one of the most confident boosting baits that you can possibly throw. I've got a couple right here. This is the perfect drop shot worm. You can go for a minnow imitation bait. And the cool thing about a drop shot is you can throw a little crawl on the back, you can throw a little swim bait. It's one of those rigs that you can switch up and change depending on what the fish are hitting, where they're at, and how they're reacting to certain lures. You can actually drag a drop shot kind of like a swimming bait fish and then stop it. It's a very versatile lure, rig lure / lure, but it definitely makes my top one on my list, and definitely has caught some of my biggest fish along with the jig. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's episode. I hope you guys learned a few things about how I fish and maybe how you can fish as well as this summer progresses. So I appreciate your viewership, and I'll catch you guys next time on Fishing the Midwest.